Nigeria's political atmosphere is heating up as parties prepare for the next phase of the 2027 election cycle, with campaign activities expected to gather momentum from August 19 under the electoral timetable. At the same time, concerns are growing over the Cybercrime Act, with critics warning it could affect political speech and online engagement during the campaign season, while supporters insist it is necessary to curb cybercrime, misinformation, and incitement. So, can Nigerians strike the right balance between protecting democracy and protecting free speech? Joining us tonight to make sense of the concerns on free speech, digital strategy, and the Cybercrime Act is President Ewemade Aigbokhan Esq, Acting President, Rural Development Information and Legal Advocacy Center. Good evening, President. Thank you for joining us tonight. Are you hearing me, President?
I can hear you clearly. Good evening.
Okay, good. Thank you for joining us. So right away, tell us about the major provisions of the Cybercrime Act. What are the major provisions of the Cybercrime Act?
The major provisions for cyberbullying. We have the provisions for cyber stalking. Generally, the Cybercrime Act is a law that primarily faces breaches of rules that are platform-based. It tackles offenses online. It tackles offenses that are secured on digital platforms. So visually, all the offenses that are on ground are also on platforms. So the Cybercrime Act is to tame those offenses clearly stated. And once an offense is clearly stated, becomes binding and enforceable. So Cybercrime Act is primarily facing offenses that are platform-based.
Now, between misinformation and restrictions on free speech, which is a bigger threat?
Yes, between misinformation and free speech.
Yes, between misinformation and restrictions. Between misinformation and restrictions on free speech, which is a bigger threat?
Okay. So, parallel to democracy, to individual, misinformation can be a bigger threat, but to our collective interest, the bigger threat is the restriction of free speech, because it's a component of democracy. Without free speech, there's no democracy. With free speech, with democracy without free speech, there's no democracy. So democracy cannot survive without people having expression. So you can decide to say, okay, let's do a balancing. So, but as it is, between free speech and misinformation, for democracy, free speech is still ultimate. But for individual, I think misinformation is a calamity.
All right, talking about being the ultimate in terms of free speech. Now, amid growing social media influence, campaigns begin on August 19. Can politicians campaign freely under the Cybercrime Act?
Of course, politicians are expected to campaign very freely, even under not just under the Cybercrime Act, there are other legislations, or even under the Electoral Act, which also talks about electoral financing limitations and all that. So, politicians can, even when the campaign starts, when can campaign really start? So politicians are free to campaign, even with the enactment of the Cybercrime Act, but there are limitations of what they can do. One of which is that they cannot incite violence with their campaign. Incitation of violence is a crime. You cannot manipulate electoral materials or electoral figures or electoral broadcasts online in the name of campaign or in the name of comedy. You cannot begin to share malicious information about opponent or about anybody online. The Cybercrime Act also forbids them from sharing personal information of other people. Your supporters, your followers, your opponents, you cannot share their personal information without their authorization. You're getting it? So the Cybercrime Act is there to support electionary and the electionary campaign, post and pre, but it forbids irregular use of the platform in a way that it offends another or perhaps the state.
Okay, looking at the Cybercrime Act holistically, has it not in any way created fear online so that Nigerians will have to like censor themselves before posting political opinions?
Not at all. There's no fear online. There are regular use of online tools and materials. What Nigerians now need to have is what they call stronger digital literacy. You need to know what to share and you need to know what not to share. You need to know what to read and you need to know what not to read. So if we have stronger digital literacy, you cannot be afraid of using online platforms. There are many politicians who have all the handles and they're able to use it more magnificently. So it's not to put fear in your mind or fear in the heart of users, but to regulate misconduct and irregularity.
Okay, is it possible for a campaign message to become a criminal offense? When you put out a campaign message online, is it possible it can be termed as a criminal offense depending on the message, how you craft it? Is it possible?
Very well. A message sent online that discloses the private information of another person without his authority is a crime. A political message shared online that displays misleading information is a crime. A message shared online that is a fake news, that election have been brought backward, that's a fake news. That in itself is a crime. A message shared online just to harass voters, that if you don't come with your voter's card and your party card to the election venue, you'll be dealt with. That in itself is a crime. A message shared online that there is imminent threat of violence on election day is a crime. So the limits of crime under the law are clearly spelled out. It's not imaginary. It's there. So if you are doing your campaign messages, you must revolve it to ensure that it's cut off all these the crime elements that can lead you to the nearest prison.
Now, flowing from what you just said, President, young voters now see the cyberspace as more influential than traditional structures. Won't these acts limit their participation in key issues?
Yes, not just young voters, young population sees these digital platforms as more embracing than the traditional platforms. So basically, they use it more, and don't also forget traditional platforms broadcasts are manned by seasoned broadcasters, while social media platforms are perhaps handled by our new generation media personnel, who have also confirmed on themselves the role of a journalist. So the usage of traditional platforms are not going to have those threats. It is these online platforms wherein people can man at any time to share and to republish that are going to give some problem of false results, false figures, personality, misleading information, fake news, and all the rest. So our young voters are already online. They cannot be pushed out of it. Our young voters are already publishers in their own right. Our young voters are already journalists in their pedigree. What the state need to do is to improve on what is called digital literacy. You can begin to boost their literacy. You need to tell them what to do and what not to do, like we are doing now. This just 10 minutes, 15 minutes exercise is digital literacy. And that's what our system institutions should begin to work on to ensure that those voting population online know what is right and what is wrong, so that they can make a good choice.
Yeah, so that they can make a good choice. Flowing from that, should influencers and content creators employed by politicians be held accountable for political content deemed to have run afoul of this law?
Okay, I get your question now. Basically, the offender and the person who breached the law is the one that will be held accountable, not the sender, because it's not a civil offense. It's not a tort.
Okay.
is you breach the law, you be held accountable for it. Not because I'm a social media influencer. A social media influencer is just like any other person. It's just that what differentiates you from another person is that you have taken social media as your full-time responsibility, which also imposes on you the duty to know more than another person. You will be held accountable by the law for breaching the law, not necessarily the political party or the politician you are campaigning for. So whenever you are asked to man the social media platform to begin to work for any politician, you should know that the responsibility that comes for it is a criminal liability, and it cannot be shared, except the other person also has some element that he has contributed to the offense. If you gave me the material upon which you share, the politician and the social media influencer can be held accountable. When the social media influencer is the one who created the content and begin to share it, he cannot now say that I'm working for Mr. A or I'm working for Mr. Z. He's held accountable stricto sensu.
Okay, talking about free speech, where should we draw the line during campaigns? In terms of free speech, where should we draw the line during campaigns?
Yes, you just called it a hate speech. You are criticizing another politician in a way that arouses your own supporter to begin to detest him. That's a hate speech.
No, I'm talking about
campaign manifesto.
Free speech. Talking about free speech. Where should we draw the line during campaigns?
Free speech. Yes, free speech, during the line of free speech in a campaign, if not well cut out, also leads to hate speech, like I just earlier mentioned. So free speech is talking about your manifesto. Free speech is about talking about corruption in Nigeria. Free speech is about criticizing issues of public interest. But by the time you're not taking it personal, you're not beginning to mention personal information that concerns the person in a way that is not of public interest. It now metamorphoses into hate speech.
Now, how should parties combat fake news without silencing opponents?
Oh, very good question. Fake news can be combated with tools, even like fact checker. Independent fact checker can be deployed to check whether the information is correct or not, and if it's not correct, you can write to the person who has spread it to bring it down and commence civil suit if you want, as optional against the person spreading the information. So by the time you begin to use the police, you begin to harass the person. That is no longer healthy for our democracy, because public personality should also expect some public information of some nuisance value. So you must be able to tame it and be able to bridge the gap. So when there are information spread about you that is false or that is unhealthy, you use a civil mechanism and file a defamation suit against the person, rather than dragging the person left, right, and center with police, with civil defense and security agencies, even with community vigilante, in the name of enforcing the Cybercrime Act. Cybercrime Act is strictly to be enforced by the Department of State and not to be used by civil defense or allied agencies like Community Neighborhood Watch.
Yeah, thank you, President. Very soon we are going to be inundated with political campaigns. It's just around the corner. Why that will soon kickstart? Should the Cybercrime Act be reviewed before campaigns intensify? Should it be reevaluated? Do you think it should be, from your perspective now?
No. Cybercrime Act is a law that tames abuse on social media platforms. Now campaigns are done on ground, televised on platforms, right? So there is nothing that affects Cybercrime Act with campaigns. The campaign can be done without violating Cybercrime Act. You criticize your opponent on corruption. That has nothing to do with violation of Cybercrime Act. But by the time you are a ticket bearer of maybe a youth party, YP, and you are sending your opponent in the ruling party test, I'm yet to hear from you on our discussion. If you are not hear from you, you will lose the election. You will send him another test again. your loss is already glaring at you. You send him another test again, you'll be defeated in the election day. Just watch and see. Those are no longer campaign. That is not threat messages, and it can fall into the square of cyber stalking. So politicians are expected to have code of conduct. You behave yourself to ensure that you follow the campaign through and through. Criticize what the governor is doing if one is going for a second ticket. Criticize his flyover of Jangolova. Criticize whatever you are seeing on ground, just to get popularity. But by the time you now move it away from criticism of public utilities and issues of public interest to his personality, to personal lifestyle, to his height, to his look, those ones are no longer campaign. That is now blackmail, and the law is there to tame it.
Can the law be enforced without intimidating critics? Because the law is there to guide us. The law is there to point us in the right direction. But while enforcing the law, can we do it without intimidating critics?
Without what?
Intimidating critics. Without intimidation.
Very good. Yes, the law is not made to silence dissent, right? But it's made to silence deviant usage of digital platforms. And that's very clear. So when you deploy the law to silence dissent, like it's done in some states across the country, I don't want to mention them, you position yourself as a politician that is not tolerant. And when citizens begin to see you as intolerant, the impact is that you cannot be able to hold a higher office perhaps than you're already holding, because there is always room for accountability. Politicians must learn to absorb criticism. We must learn to absorb dissent opinion. Because if every politician is to criticize whoever that punish or prosecute whoever that criticizes them, then you're no longer fit to hold public office, because there's no really a private life for a public official.
Before I let you go, what is your advice to politicians, political followers, content creators, influencers as campaigns kick off come 19th August?
1, responsible journalism. We must share information in a way that respects the value of the data information you are sharing. 2, there must be stronger digital literacy. The citizen need to know how to share information, the kind of information to share, and how to fact check. That moves me to the third point. There must be an independent fact check. We must have independent fact check. Even as a broadcasting station, you can even evolve your own independent fact check that can be publicly used to verify information. 4thly, there must be judicial oversight. Nobody has a right to sanction another person without a judicial decision. If you feel that your right has been pushed upon, if you feel that the opponent is using social media against you in a way that is not in conformity with the law, subject that person to the law. Nobody has a right to use his office to oppress another under the guise of Cybercrime Act or under the guise of blackmail. We must subject ourselves to the system to ensure that there is independent review of the actions and inactions that can culminate in an offense or sanction.
Thank you, President Aigbokhan Esq, Acting President, Rural Development Information and Legal Advocacy Center. It's always a delight to have you with us. Thank you again for coming. The Nigerian Police Force has
Thank you for having me.
To release the purported Director General of Presidential Foreign Investment